target is moving too fast. I can't get a lock. The tracking software is lagging," shouted Sergeant Miller, his voice cracking with frustration as he wrestled with the heavy XM-2010 enhanced sniper rifle. The scope's digital display was a blur of red boxes trying and failing to latch onto the small erratic object buzzing through the sky above the Elmwood military housing complex. The drone, a rogue commercial quadcopter that had been modified to evade electronic jamming, was zipping between the rooftops like an angry hornet. It was fast, agile, and incredibly annoying. For the last 20 minutes, it had been buzzing the homes of the base's families, peering into windows and hovering over backyards. The base commander had ordered it downed immediately, fearing it was a foreign surveillance device. So far, the base's elite designated marksmen had fired 12 rounds. They had missed 12 times. The bullets had buried themselves harmlessly in the dirt berms or the empty woods beyond the housing perimeter, but the failure was public and humiliating. "Stop chasing it," Captain Reed barked, pacing behind the line of 3 shooters who had set up their tripods on the manicured lawn of the community park. "Trap it. Anticipate the vector. You are United States Army snipers, not stormtroopers. Hit the damn thing." Reed was furious. The drone pilot, whoever they were, was clearly toying with them. The drone would hover for a second, baiting a shot, and then zip vertically 50 feet the moment a trigger was squeezed. It was a dance of mockery. The high-tech ballistic computers on the rifles were useless. They were designed to calculate lead for walking men or moving vehicles, not a chaotic, frantic piece of plastic moving at 60 miles per hour in 3 dimensions. 79-year-old Earl sat on his front porch, about 50 yards from the chaos. He was wearing a plaid bathrobe, worn-out leather slippers, and holding a mug of lukewarm Earl Grey tea. He was trying to read the Sunday paper, but the whir-z-EP of the drone and the deafening crack of the high-powered rifles were making it impossible. Earl was a man who valued his quiet. He had spent 30 years in the Marine Corps, and the only thing he wanted now was silence and his crossword puzzle. He watched the young soldiers with a look of mild disgust. They were decked out in full tactical gear, helmets, plate carriers, knee pads, in the middle of a suburb. They looked like they were invading a country, yet they couldn't swat a fly. "Hey!" Captain Reed yelled at Earl, noticing the old man staring. "Civilian, get inside. This is an active operation. Clear the porch." Earl lowered his newspaper slowly, peering over his reading glasses. "I'm on my property, son, and you boys are making a hell of a racket. You gonna catch that mosquito, or just scare it to death with noise?" Reed marched over to the porch fence. He was sweating, stressed, and in no mood for a geriatric heckler. "Sir, that is a hostile surveillance drone. It is maneuvering at high speeds. It is a Class 4 aerial threat. Go inside for your own safety before I have you detained for interfering with a military operation." Earl took a sip of his tea. "Class 4 threat? It looks like a toy from Radio Shack. And you're missing because you're aiming at where it is, not where it's going to be. You're trying to calculate math on a bird. You don't use math on birds. You use flow." "Flow?" Reed scoffed, turning back to his men as another shot rang out and missed. "Listen, Grandpa, these rifles have ballistics computers that cost more than your house. If they can't hit it, it can't be hit until it lands. Now go inside." Earl sighed. He stood up, his knees cracking audibly. He set his tea down on the railing. "I'm missing jeopardy for this," he muttered. He turned and shuffled into his house. Reed smirked, thinking he had intimidated the old man. "Keep firing, suppression fire if you have to. We need to clip a rotor." A moment later, the screen door creaked open again. Earl stepped out. He wasn't holding a newspaper anymore. In his hands was a rifle that looked like it belonged in a museum. It was a Winchester Model 52, a .22 caliber bolt-action target rifle from the 1940s. The wood stock was dark walnut, hand-rubbed to a shine, and the barrel was long and heavy. It didn't have a computer on top. It didn't even have a scope. It had iron aperture sights, a peep sight on the rear and a globe sight on the front. "Whoa! Whoa!" Reed shouted, reaching for his sidearm. "Drop the weapon! What do you think you're doing?" "Saving my eardrums," Earl grumbled. He didn't point the rifle at the soldiers. He walked to the edge of his porch, leaning against the wooden pillar. He looked up at the sky. The drone was currently hovering about 150 yards out, bobbing up and down, taunting the snipers. "Sir, put that down!" Reed screamed. "That is a rimfire rifle. You can't hit a moving target at that range with iron sights. You're going to cause collateral damage." Earl ignored him. He worked the bolt, sliding a tiny .22 cartridge into the chamber. Click-clack. The sound was mechanical and precise. He brought the rifle to his shoulder. His posture changed instantly. The shuffling old man disappeared. His back straightened, his head locked into position, his cheek welding to the woodstock. He didn't look frail anymore. He looked like a statue cast in iron. The drone suddenly dove, accelerating left to right across the skyline, picking up speed. It was moving fast, too fast for the heavy sniper rifles to track smoothly. "Target traversing," Sergeant Miller yelled. "Too fast. I can't lead it." Earl didn't track the drone. He swung the rifle barrel ahead of it, moving the muzzle faster than the target. He wasn't looking at the drone. He was looking at empty air, yards in front of the plastic nuisance. He was visualizing the intersection of two lines in space. He was channeling decades of instinct. "Don't shoot!" Reed yelled, lunging forward. Crack! The sound of the .22 was sharp and dry, a mere pop compared to the thunder of the sniper rifles. For a split second, nothing happened. The drone kept flying. Reed opened his mouth to berate the old man for his recklessness. Then the drone shuddered. A puff of plastic debris exploded from its center. One of the rotor arms sheared off completely, severed by a bullet the size of a pea. The drone spun violently out of control, tumbling from the sky like a stone. It smashed into the pavement of the empty street with a satisfying crunch of plastic and electronics. Silence descended on the neighborhood. The drone's annoying whine was gone. The snipers lowered their rifles, staring at the wreckage in disbelief. Sergeant Miller looked at his high-tech scope, then at the pile of junk on the road. Did he hit that?" Miller whispered. "Iron sights, on a moving target, at 150 yards?" Captain Reed stopped mid-lunge. He looked at the wreckage. He looked at Earl. Earl was casually opening the bolt of his rifle, catching the spent brass casing in his hand and dropping it into his bathrobe pocket. He leaned the rifle against the porch railing and picked up his tea. "You were aiming at the drone," Earl said, blowing on his tea. "Beginner mistake. A target that small, moving that fast? It's just a mechanical duck. You have to swing through. You have to feel the speed. You boys rely too much on the red box to tell you when to shoot. By the time the computer says fire, the bird is gone." Reed walked up the porch steps, his face pale. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "That shot. That's not a hunter's shot. That's deflection shooting. That's aerial gunnery." Before Earl could answer, a black staff car pulled up to the curb, flanked by military police. General Vance, the base commander, stepped out. He saw the crashed drone and the stunned snipers. He walked briskly toward the scene. "Status report, Captain," Vance barked. "I heard a rimfire shot. Did we get it?" "Yes, sir," Reed stammered. "But we didn't shoot it. He did." Reed pointed at Earl. General Vance looked up at the porch. His eyes widened. He marched up the walkway, his stern face breaking into a wide grin. "Well, I'll be damned," Vance laughed. "Earl, the Duke Sterling. I should have known. I heard shots being missed for 20 minutes, and I thought, Earl is going to lose his temper soon." "General," Earl nodded, taking a sip of tea. "Tell your boys to keep it down next time. I'm trying to do the Sunday crossword." Vance turned to the stunned Captain Reed and his snipers. "Do you men know who this is?" Vance gestured to Earl, who was now adjusting his bathrobe. The soldiers shook their heads. "This is Master Gunnery Sergeant Earl Sterling, USMC retired," Vance announced, his voice filled with reverence. In 1968, he wasn't a sniper. He was a door gunner on a Huey gunship, and then he became the lead instructor for the aerial target Marksmanship unit. He holds the record for the highest score ever recorded in the inter-service skeet competition. He shot 400 straight targets without a miss. In a hurricane. Vance looked at the drone wreckage. He spent 40 years teaching men how to hit fast-moving targets from moving platforms. You boys were trying to use a calculator to hit a hummingbird. Earl here just used his eyes. Captain Reed looked at Earl with a newfound sense of awe. He realized that the grumpy old civilian was actually a lethal legend. The man hadn't just gotten lucky. He had applied a lifetime of mastery that technology had made the young soldier forget. I apologize, Master Guns," Reed said, snapping to attention. "That was incredible. The lead calculation alone." Earl waved a hand dismissively. "Lead isn't a calculation, Captain. It's a feeling. You feel the speed of the bird, you feel the speed of the bullet, and you let them meet. You stop thinking, and you start shooting." Earl picked up his rifle. "Now, if you'll excuse me, my tea is getting cold, and I believe I have solved 7 down." Earl turned and shuffled back into his house, the screen door slamming shut behind him. The general chuckled. "Pack it up, gentlemen, and take that drone wreckage to the lab. Maybe you can analyze the bullet hole and learn something about accuracy." The snipers packed up their thousands of dollars of gear in silence. They felt the weight of their failure, but more importantly, they felt the weight of the lesson. They had been humbled by a man in a bathrobe with a rifle older than their fathers. It is easy to believe that the newest technology makes us invincible. We trust screens more than our eyes and data more than our instincts. But Earl showed us that the human element, the connection between the eye, the hand, and the mind, is something that no microchip can replace. He proved that an old master with a simple tool is far more dangerous than a novice with a supercomputer. True skill doesn't need batteries. It doesn't need updates. It just needs focus. If this story reminded you that we should never underestimate the quiet generation, hit that subscribe button. Join our community as we honor the legends who built the standards we strive for today. Share this with a friend who loves high-tech gear. Remind them that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. And remember, watch the bird, not the sight. Type respect in the comments if you would want Earl on your team when the chips are down. Let's keep these stories alive.